You know, my typical makeup style is somewhere between romantic goth and no makeup at all. So I would describe my makeup style as all over the place, but I definitely have a preference for blacks and reds and louds and multi-chromes. And when the Lancôme Café Crush palette in collaboration with Sheika Daley was announced, I was like, wow, I really want to have this. And I really do not know why, because this is the most boring eyeshadow palette ever to exist. It is the definition of a neutral warm palette, and this in a dictionary could be next to the term warm neutral eyeshadow palette. This would be a picture of it. But still, for whatever reason, I was sold. I was initially hyped, and I didn't even read any of the other reactions to this palette. I was initially drawn to this. I saw this and it just felt right to have this. And as soon as this dropped in Germany, I got it, and here we are now with the Lancôme Coffee Crush palette. So let's talk about the swatches first. And is this a surprise of the swatches? I don't think so. The shimmers, very subtle, very kind of understated, and actually far away from what I'm usually drawn to. But I will talk about this, like what kind of perspective in the grand scheme of makeup I put on this. And the mattes, incredible. Absolutely stunning. A lot of palettes that I have swatch really bad, but they perform very well. This one already in the swatch was really good. The lighter shades here in the swatch, or the lightest shade actually, I had to build up, but the others were just dipped into the pan and then I drew in the swatch sticker that I own, and the complete field was filled up. So that is actually quite impressive, because I always say swatches don't tell the whole story, but honestly, when they swatch good, it could still be a fail in application, because they could be a bit too much. Like Limelight, for example, they swatch incredibly fine, but they don't perform very well. They are super patchy because they are just too pigmented. The Lancôme ones, the mattes, let me just spoiler you right away, don't do this. They perform well and they swatch well. I don't have a comparison with other Lancôme palettes. I don't have one of their like typical 5-pan palettes. I don't like that format, so I can't tell you if the quality of this Coffee Crush palette is different to the other ones. But I also was asked to pull out a palette that I have to see how similar they are. So that's what we're actually going to do right now. Because I think 1.5 years ago, if not even 2 years ago, Beauty Bay came out with the Rich palette. And when I saw the Coffee Crush, I really thought I have seen this color story already, but I made it like I ticked it off with, yeah, it's a warm color story. Of course I've seen this, but honestly, I see some similarities here. Let me be super talented and hold it up somehow next to it. I mean, definitely, yes. So I try my best to just swatch here some comparisons for you live right now, just at this very moment. That's first one here, Sweet Chantilly, is a beigey base with a little bit of golden flecks. That is something that the Beauty Bay palette does not have, but I'm pretty sure that I can dupe the pumpkin spice shade. I don't know why this is called pumpkin spice with this one here. This one is a little bit more pinky, but let's see. So no, let's do it here. Here we have pumpkin spice from Lancôme, and this is the shade Candle. Yeah, definitely more pink than anything. Pumpkin spice actually in the pan from Lancôme looks also very pink, so that's not so spot on. Then we have that darker shimmer here. This is Caramel Macchiato, and I think we have a quite good dupe with Taffeta here. So Here's Lancôme Caramel Macchiato and Taffeta next to it. The Beauty Bay shade is a little bit more brassy, a little bit more reddish compared to the Lancôme one. The other two shimmers I don't think are in the Beauty Bay palette, but let's be honest, these are so basic. You will find them in any other palette. So let's do some matte comparisons now. Swatch the first four mattes here and just leave a little bit of space. So here you have them from the Lancôme palette swatched out. And the first dupe here from Beauty Bay is Mascarpone. This is definitely more a beigey pink, but let's see. I have another one in my eye that I want to try. So on top of it is the shade Pampas, also from Beauty Bay. It is at the end just a very, very light beigey color that, again, is nothing special. But that is actually the whole topic of the Coffee Crush palette. It's really not that special. It's just the composition. Then we have this super warm shade here. And next to it, the shade Brioche from Beauty Bay. The third shade here is called Hot Cocoa from Lancôme. And next to it, let's swatch this one. Yeah, there is some kind of a similarity. It's the shade Fondant or Fondant. I think it's Fondant because it's French. They're quite similar. I would say the Beauty Bay shade, again, is a tad bit warmer. And then the darkest one from Lancôme, which is called Espresso Intense. Here we have the shade Fossil from Beauty Bay. Fossil is a little bit more purple leaning, but again, the similarities are there. Last but not least, let's do it here on the hand. We have these two shades from Lancôme. So the first one here is called Passion Tango, and I think it looks quite like the shade Rioja from Beauty Bay. But yeah, Beauty Bay, again, a bit more intense. And the last one from Lancôme is called Berry Bisou, and that is very, very close to the shade Galaxy. Honestly, I think the comparisons here are quite nice. It's not a 100% copy. That's not what I wanted to show you. But if you want to have the vibe of the Coffee Crush palette, the vibe you will definitely get with the Beauty Bay Rich palette. So many thanks to my friend Jam from the channel Just Jam 1. She did a video called Scratch the Itch where she basically created a look with this palette but was using the Coffee Crush as her inspiration and basically just tried, and she did actually dupe the vibe of the palette in her look, so I will link that video down for you so you can check that out. I myself will do 2 looks with this palette for you, and then at the end you will of course see my final thoughts on this. So now I would say let's just start with the looks after a lot of rambling today. Let's start the first look with the lightest blending shade here, this Chai Latte. And I apply this slightly in the crease, but I mainly blend it upwards in the transition area. I then go into Hot Cocoa and I start to blend this into the crease, starting in the center, bringing it mainly outwards and whatever is left inwards. And then I go into Passion Tango. Yeah, Passion Tango. And that one I use on the outer crease and also bring it down to the lashes like in a V shape. I applied some glitter glue and now I go into this here. This is Caramel Macchiato. And I start to apply this in the center of the lid and then I tap it outwards. I also go into Berry Bisou here. And I use this on the most outer lid part. Otherwise, I think it would crash too much with the golden shade since I used that reddish matte. I now go into Pumpkin Spice and use this on the rest of the lid and blend it together with the center shade. For liner on the lower lash line, I will be using the Charlotte Tilbury Copper Charge one, and I used the matte side. And I line the waterline with that. I now tap into Berry Bisou, no, Passion Tango it was, and smudge out that lower lash line completely. And then I also take Hot Cocoa and smudge it slightly on top but slightly underneath to diffuse it. For the inner corner highlight, I tap into the first shade here. This is Sweet Chantilly. And surprisingly apply this as inner corner highlight and also smudge it a little bit here on the lower lash line. So this is now the first finished look. On the lips, I'm wearing Lisa Aldrich Sculpt and Shade Pencil in 3C together with the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Lip Blur in the shade Rose Blur. That was a very, very long take on the lip color that I'm wearing. I like the look. I got exactly what I expected, so I am very, very positive that the second look of the video is also going to be something that I will expect. So let's do that. Look number 2, I start with Cinnamon Dream. And I start to apply this right into the crease. And then I slightly feather it up towards the transition area. But I will probably go over that with a lighter shade in a second. But I want to see how well they actually blend. Like, how can you smooth, smoke, and just feather them out from one application? And to be honest, I'm quite satisfied with that. But I go into Chai Latte with a very fluffy brush and I just go over the outer edges. I just prefer that look. I'll go into Espresso Intense, and that one I use on that outer V area and a little bit also outer lid. Smoke it out and smoke it then throughout the crease, but not all the way to the inner corner, maybe a bit above the center. And then I just take that fluffy brush and wiggle a little bit over the edges. No additional product, nothing. I now tap into Golden Frappuccino and I apply this all over the lid. I take a little bit of Strawberry Latte and apply this on top here of the inner part. And then I used a brush that I used Cinnamon Cream or Dream. Wait a second. Cinnamon Cream, is it? I don't know if I said Cinnamon Dream in the beginning, but the first shade that I used, but I didn't dip back in. I just take whatever is left and wiggle that through the crease. For lash line, I start with a liner. This is Hindash Intra Liner, but I really need to sharpen it. Now that it's sharp again, I line my waterline with that. And I also did a little bit here of the upper waterline. I now tap into Espresso Intense and use this to smudge out the lower lash line. I'm not taking it all the way in, I just leave that most inner part without. And then I take Cinnamon Dream and I start blending this from that inner part, bringing it outwards and slightly down. For the inner corner highlight, I pick up this one. This is Café Olé. And surprisingly, apply this on the inner corner. And here you have now the second finished look. On the lips, I'm wearing Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk Fair Lip Liner together with the Fenty Gloss Bomb Cream in Cupcakin'. I did like both looks that I created with this, and to be honest, this look also, it just completely met up with the expectation that I had. I was not expecting super intense eye looks, super loud eye looks. I was expecting neutral, but with a little bit of spiciness, and to be honest, I think this is exactly what you get with this palette. When I posted this for the first time in my Instagram story, I wrote about this palette that this is so freaking boring, but it is so beautiful, and that is honestly the best description of the palette. This is boring but beautiful, and sometimes you just need exactly this type of palette. I do like the mattes a lot. They blend very, very well, no patchiness, and they also feel very velvety. With the shimmers, I was initially, after the first look that I did, I was like, I really don't like them. But now with the second look, I just had to rethink my opinion, because you sometimes, when you review and you rank stuff or you rate stuff, you just need to see in what environment is this on. Can I compare the quality of the shimmers here with the shimmer quality of Cleona? No. Can I compare this even with Blind Bunny or Cosmic brushes? No, I don't even want to compare this with something more mainstream like Anastasia Beverly Hills, for example. Definitely a whole different vibe, and in the grand scheme of everything and in these different makeup subcategories and what you can expect, this is quality wise an 8 out of 10. Initially, because of the shimmers and because they are not as punchy as I would like to have them, I was about to give it a 7 out of 10. But again, I thought about this, and when you just put this into perspective with other items from this category, and the category I would call safe space, neutral, everyday makeup for people who would say that my normal makeup style is not office appropriate, and I don't mean this in any offensive way or so, I just have a problem with that term. This is an 8 out of 10. Did this description make any sense? I really hope so, because I try to put this in a, like, I don't know, in a bubble where you have to just view that. For me, the Lancôme Café Crush palette is in the same bubble as Tom Ford palettes are. They are not super intense. They will not give you super dramatic loud looks. They are neutral with sometimes a level of spice. And again, in that perspective of makeup, this is quality wise an 8 out of 10. The color story honestly is a 9 out of 10. I have only one critique, and that is the fact that we have the shades Sweet Chantilly and Café au lait. I would have done something different. I don't know what, but I think these are a bit too close to each other. But other than that, this is a very, very well done color story. And my personal excitement for this palette is also is at a 7 or 8. Right now, as we're going into summer, I would say that this is a 7.5, developing into an 8.5, if not a 9 when we get into the fall mood, because honestly I think this is a fall type, a very, very typical fall color story. And when we get then to winter or spring, I would say that my excitement will lower down a bit to the 7. I'm not doing seasonal makeup at all, but there is just a certain, I feel drawn to certain color stories in certain seasons. That is just a fact, although I don't do it on purpose. For me, this was my first ride with Lancôme and their eyeshadows. I have no idea how the others are, how these super small pans with the long rectangular pans are. I'm not into this type of format, so this format also visually speaks to me. I love the theme, I love the overall thing, and to be honest, when you are on the hunt for a warm-toned, neutral eyeshadow palette, it's a good choice. Yes, absolutely. Will I now rave about this for weeks and months on like I do about Narimi eyeshadows or the Blend Bunny Longing or the Cosmic Brushes Cool Trills when we just stay more in the neutral vibe or in the like not colorful makeup vibe? No, I won't. I will also not rave about this the way that I probably raved about the emo palette from Adept Cosmetics, but I think this is a good choice. It's a safe play, and this is something that if you were looking for that safe play in makeup, will probably not fail you, or I at least cannot imagine failing anybody because the quality is really, really there. For my final ranking, I just put it into my Excel spreadsheet. I ended up then with the personal excitement set at an 8. So overall, this scored an 8.3 out of 10. And that puts it in the same ranking space as, for example, a Mothership 5 from Pat McGrath. An 8.3 also I gave the Natasha Denona Xenon palette or the Viseart Petite Cool Matte. So this, the 8.3 is a very, very good score, and it is therefore at the same level as a lot of other great brands. So definitely not a fail. I give this a recommendation actually. Of course, always depending on what you like in makeup. So now I'm of course curious, what are your thoughts? Did you pick this up too? Will you pick this up? Were you just as excited about this palette as me? Although this might not be your look. I don't know what it was with this, but it just whoosh, I really wanted to have this. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to never miss out any of the other upcoming videos, and I'll see you soon.